it's any percent normal. I have 3 commentators today. They are Dinutari, King SPI, and Rusta. They are going to explain a little bit about the run and their difference with the other games on the trilogy. And timer starts as soon as I press yes on this confirmation box. So it's going to be like 3, 2, 1, go.
So should we introduce ourselves?
Yeah, sure.
All right, I'm Rusta, relatively recent runner. Oh, sorry, relatively recent runner who started running this, but helped people come up with a new route that we're using these days. So, next up,
I'm Dinutari. I'm a console runner and kind of just an encyclopedia of the game.
Yep, and I'm King SPI, so I'm a PC runner of Lightning Returns. So I run pretty much all the categories these days.
Chaos Berkeley.
So people, longtime fans of the Final Fantasy series, may notice that normally Final Fantasy games start with a long cutscene, but the more recent additions to the series let you skip cutscenes. So we're already off to the races. So I think we can start commentating on what's happening.
Yeah. And this game allows you to skip all the cutscenes. This game's got a weird. Sometimes you can skip your cutscene skips, which is always enjoyable. It happens more on PC because of the game not meaning to run at 60 frames per second, but it does.
But anyway, so this is basically a tutorial for the first part of the game, and it's just telling you how to start battles, how to operate in battles. So the first guy he fought is Niblet, and you just use spam thunders. That's the fastest way to kill him. This guy is like a little tutorial on guarding. So guarding is something that's pretty new to the FF series. You have the ability to just press a button to block enemy attacks, and if you do that at the right timing, then it will make them start taking additional damage after through staggering.
So you'll notice Shonen's damage numbers on the Anubis after the stagger, the numbers turn gold. That's kind of the game's way of telling you that when you've reached a certain amount of modifiers that you're doing double damage. It's more prominent when you start using debuffs on enemies. Each enemy kind of has like its own stagger type conditions, where when you stagger them, you also get a damage bonus, or you get a couple of extra debuffs. That Anubis end up getting unshelled, which would, if Shonen was using magic, would take 50% more damage. Also, this game uses something called cut and keep. So cut is just a numerical value where you can interrupt the enemy, and keep is a numerical value where you resist interruptions. When the numbers become golden, you also get double cut, so you have a really high chance of interrupting enemy actions.
Shonen, if you get a moment when you've got a free hand, could you try and turn like everything up in OBS for the stream, please?
Yeah, sure. And the next loading screen I will do it.
So one quick thing about the battle system is in previous Final Fantasies, you usually had a set of characters in the battle, and each character would have their own ATB that would be charging constantly. Well, they're not doing actions. So once their ATB is filled, they will do an action. This game has a pretty different system. It's more similar to the previous ones in the trilogy, but it's still pretty distinct. The idea in this one is that Lightning has 3 different garbs that she can wear, and each one has its own ATB, and the ATB charges on the non-active garbs. So you can use all your abilities, or however much ATB is remaining, and then you can swap to another guard, which was charging while the other was being used.
Yeah, and here Shonen ended up getting caught by the Niblet, which is not ideal, but it's okay. It only loses a few seconds.
So here we get the good old tutorials Altis. We're just going to end up staggering with spells, and this is our first instance of using overclocks. The game kind of made a mistake, or a blessing for speedruns, to putting overclock in the game. It's quite a broken mechanic when used correctly. So overclock gives you, it's uses a point system, but for more simple terms, it gives you about 180 ATB. And when you leave Overclock, it refills the ATB on all 3 Garbs.
That's the most broken part of it right there.
Yeah, it's not the Overclock itself, it's the fact that you can basically just get free ATB for 2 EP, which the run will hinder on greatly for almost all the fights except the last boss.
Yeah, and maybe one more thing we can just briefly mention for the Zaltis fight. You may have noticed that the staggering hit ended up doing over 4,600 damage, which was a lot more than the other regular hits, and that's because Shonen ended up hitting the head of the Zaltis. So there's positional damage and special modifiers. In this case, if you hit the head of the Zaltis.
Yeah, the head takes 1.5 times damage, where the body takes just 1.0. The staggering hit, you also get a 3 times damage bonus.
And all the enemies have a certain number, which is the amount of staggering power that it takes to actually stagger them. And Zaltises in particular take 15 times stagger power when you hit their head. So the head is ideal for staggering.
Yeah, so here we're gonna get introduced to the customizing schemata. I'm just gonna toss a potion really quick. And we're getting introduced to the escape ability that will let us, well, escape battles, but at the cost of losing 1 hour on each day. We will use actually that for our advantage on some sections in order to kill the days.
Yeah, so Shonen here is tossing a potion. The main reason why we're doing that is to be able to buy more Phoenix Downs, which actually sell for more gil. So it's basically part of the gil route, which allows us to get more money, and then we're going to use that to our advantage to buy some really good equipment, or garbs, I should say.
Yeah, so from a speedrun routing perspective, the key resource in this run is the EP, which you get a refill every day to your max EP, and so we route most of the route around using that EP in the most effective way possible. So right now, we start this day with 5, and the inventory has 4 empty slots, and there's really nothing we can use that EP for besides just buying items that we can then sell for gil. So throw away a potion, leaving 5 empty slots, and now Phoenix Downs sell for the most, so we're just buying 3 of those and going to sell those in the potion, and then 2 Warriors potions, which will be used for fights coming up.
So this game does have a couple of donation incentives. You can pick, is it the Garb color Shonen?
No, you can pick the Garb that I have predetermined, so the one that is going to show while running on the world.
And there's a donation incentive to name the Chocobo mount.
You mean the Angel of Valhalla?
Yes, I was trying to leave it spoiler-free for some reason. I don't know why.
The spoiler would be what its default name is, but not that it's a Chocobo.
Birdo?
Right now, the winning one is Batmobile.
Nice.
You can also, from what I see, you can also choose a mask.
Oh yes.
As a donation incentive. And
there's...
for all I know, you can still pay for them. Like you can still donate for the incentives, right? Can you explain them more, because you obviously know the game better?
So the masks are adornments. So you can. This is kind of lightning dress me up. So there's shops around where you can buy adornments, like the Lightning and Sarah mask. It's a mask that just looks like Sarah from 13 and 13-2, and then Lightning. There's also, you can get, just casually playing, you can get like Chocobo wings, you can get a little demon tail. This game has a lot of separate adornments, so at any time, about past the hour mark, we can buy them, and then when the donation's met, we can just equip them.
Yeah, I think in terms of the Chocobo name incentive, I think that's going to be closer to about, 35 minutes in Shonen's route?
Yeah,
around that time.
So basically, don't delay.
Donate today.
Donate today.
So quick note really quick, I just wanted to mention, so I mentioned EP being an important resource. There's another thing that we have to take into account throughout the entire run, and that's the time. So on the upper right side, you can see there's a mini map, and below that it shows you the current time. This game is little bit like Majora's Mask, in that you're basically counting down towards the end, and you have to finish all of the quests in before the time runs out. But since we're speedrunners, it becomes more of an issue of passing time while we do what we need to do to time ending the run with when we finish everything we need.
Welcome back, Light.
And
There's
so,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So I was just gonna say that that was day one. So that's just they drop you at near the end of the day already, so you can just have a short day to see what the system's like. But they still put you 3 hours before when you can actually start doing things. And so normally you're supposed to do a few quests to help solve a crime that can help you unlock the stores, but instead you can just escape 3 encounters, as Shona mentions, that loses you 3 hours, pushes you past midnight, and then after midnight you can just go to the shop. So that's just the fastest way to unlock the shop, and then sleep, and then now the first day is done, and we're back in the Ark, and we'll be here.
And just like Rusto was saying earlier, most of the days are just set up around EP, and in this case, the Hope Shop that's in the Ark uses EP as a currency. So we ended up buying a bunch of potions which cost EP, and as a result, for the first day, we didn't really have any EP, which is why we're essentially sleeping the entire day.
Yeah, another thing that you might notice is that the days do not end at 12 a.m. So they end on 6 a.m.
A common theme for the run is when we're out of EP, the day ends.
Yeah.
Just because we either need it for battles. Most of it's now is going to be used for teleporting around in battles.
And yeah, just as a point of reference, we mentioned that the overclocks are 2 EP, teleports are 3, and so for example, right now, Shonen will respawn with 5 EP, and so I believe you're going to
use
that would be 1 overclock and 1 teleport.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah.
What you do on this thing.
It's kind of the console route follows the PC route for the first 3 days, or like the way that's set up now.
Right.
Yeah, maybe this is something that we can quickly touch on, is the fact that there are many different routes for this game, and they're not necessarily better or worse. Essentially, this game is super non-linear, which means that you can do most of the quests whenever you want. So it's essentially a big puzzle, and you're basically putting all the pieces together and doing things in the order that makes the most sense. But there's a little bit of variance between PC and console right now.
Yeah.
An important reason why there is difference between the two is that so you have to end the day every day, and so you can always do that by just making it past 5 a.m. and then fighting something and ending the day. But that takes time, right? It takes time to start the fight and retry it. Ideally, you just finish what you want to do, and then right then the time runs out. However, the time runs more quickly on PS3, or I guess you could say the PS3 is more laggy than PC, and so you can't do as much in the same time. So the routes are, accommodated for that.
So here we're prepping for when we start doing the main quest here in Yusnan. We're talking to these Chocobo girls to get fireworks, and then we're going to be buying our first garb for the day, or the game that's going to be carrying us almost basically to the end game. It's called Velvet Bouncer. It's a really good starting garb. It has an ability that has a permanent strength plus 80 attached to it, and the garb itself also gives you plus 10% to strength. On the first day, Shonen picked up the fighter's emblem, which gives us plus 15 to strength, or plus 15%. So between the fighter's emblem and Velvet Bouncer, we have 25% additional strength.
I was wondering, why do I have 20 more gil? And it was because I had to fight one Niblet. Yeah. I was like, oh my god, I missed something. But yeah.
So each ability has a damage multiplier on top of it. So Dark Muse's Blitz, or Dark Muse's attack is like 0.8, where Blitz from Velvet Bouncer is 2.1. So we're already getting double our attack stat, not including any other modifiers that we'll touch on a bit later. One of the important things is the Garb starts with 100% ATB, where right now...
So basically... Yeah,
go ahead.
So I was just going to summarize to say that the Velvet Bouncer is basically the full strength spec. We're just giving her as much strength and as much damage as possible, as quickly as possible, and that's sort of the best option in that category. The other nice thing about the Velvet Bouncer is that it looks really awesome, and since you typically in your fights doing damage, you'll debuff, then stagger, then do damage. You usually end the fight in Velvet Bouncer, so we'll get to see it a few times in the victory screen, so it's pretty cool.
And it is pretty cheap too to buy. I think it's only 1,500 gil or something like that. 12, 15.
Just a little
We have time
thing that we're doing.
for a little donation.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
sure.
We have $5 from Jack of Hearts. 9 is the best Final Fantasy. Donate to change my mind. He puts it towards Garb 2. But Anonymous donates another $5, and he puts it towards Garb 1. So these two are equal at the same time.
Alright.
And we have $29 from All-in-One Mighty. I heard there was an incentive to buy a silly mask. I'm in. Let the silliness start. And it's for Sarah mask.
Yes.
Nice.
Thank you all for your donations.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Oh,
Yeah, this
So
one
here-
was
A
good.
bat mask we can use for the Batmobile.
sadly, no.
Ooh, is that the right fight?
No, it's
No.
the wrong fight.
Yeah, they were really,
So-
really close.
So here, there's two options. You can either follow these guys, which takes about a minute and a half, or we can fight them. So Shonen was looking forward to start the fight with the fanatic that had the exclamation point on the top of his head. That would kill the leader and get rid of all of them. Sometimes they get quite tightly grouped up and it's hard to tell which one you're going to hit. So in this fight, you're going to want to just normally overclock, do blitz ×2, and then guard. If you do the finisher, you end up sending all the fanatics up in the air, which obviously just messes up the groupings. So you can see blitz doing 1,400, where an attack's doing 300, 400.
Another important thing about the overclock is that it slows the enemy down, and so these guys can spread out and make the fight take longer, but by immediately overclocking, you can keep them together and then have every single blitz hit every single fanatic.
Yeah, in overclock, all enemies' speed is reduced to 33%, where lightning's speed pretty much stays the same. I feel like it's a little bit fast. She's a little bit faster.
I know that in some cases, one of the fanatics can actually evade and
Yes.
get out of range, even if you overclock right away, which can be a little bit annoying.
Yeah, it happened to me quite sometimes.
I think it loses about something like 12 seconds.
So, one thing we haven't touched on is sometimes you'll notice when Shonen is doing attack, a orb or circle will surround lightning. This game has a timing mechanic where it's got perfect timing and perfect guards. So if you time your attack perfect, for physicals, it's usually when the weapon is, for blitz, like in the middle of the enemy sprite. If you hit the next attack button at the right time, you'll get a 20% damage boost. For guards, if you guard right before the attack hits you, you can nullify any damage. So the game really takes on like a tactile point with that, where you can go through the game without taking any damage as long as you can guard at the right time.
Yeah, and the other thing about this is you can actually generate stagger points when you do a perfect guard. So in some of the battles, for example, there's one upcoming boss fight where you actually gain stagger by perfect guarding.
There's no real stagger condition. It's not like, well, it is kind of along the lines of 13 and 13-2, where your spells and physicals will generate stagger, but each enemy has its own special quirk where you'll end up getting a double stagger bonus or 5 times stagger bonus, or in certain enemy cases, I think the most ridiculous one is like a 1,000 times stagger bonus.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes the battle system very enjoyable because you always have to do something. Like you always have to pay attention to what you're doing rather than just mashing a button, for example.
Another thing is that right now we're going to do a minor RNG part of the game. It's basically the phone booth. So we are looking for a code in order to enter the Fanatic section. It's formed by 4 numbers. The first one is always 1, 2, or 3. The second one is the one that we just check on the wall. The third one is always a 0, and the fourth one can be a 9, a 8, or a 7. So the second one is a 4. You can, guys, try in chat to guess what is going to be the number. We do that a lot on the community, though.
All right. I'm gonna say 2407.
So the fastest code, people usually go start at 1 for the first digit and start at 9 for the last digit, as that's the least inputs. So 3407 is the last code most people check. So that's what I'm guessing. Worst possible RNG.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What's that third try? That was pretty good, though.
One little thing is that King mentioned this is like a puzzle where people, try and put it together in different ways. This specific quest that we're doing right now isn't necessary to do right now. However, the city that we're in, Luxarion, has a north and a south station. You start near the north station, and you eventually have to go to the south station to visit a few other places that are mandatory for the story. And it so happens that the fastest way to get to the south station is to do this quest to get you halfway there. And so you just save time doing it now. You could do this later, but doing it now lets you get to Lux South faster. And one key thing is that we're going to be using debuffs a lot in this run. The place that we get debuffs from is from the Lux South station, meaning that we kind of have to do this. To get to Lux South, we have to do this pretty early in the run.
Dead dunes.
Wow, these gremlins are behaving a little bit weird, though.
This is RNG. The phone is RNG. Thankfully, it's kind of contained RNG. Wait, what?
Yeah, right? That gremlin...
You got the 12% chaos spot.
Yeah. I got it yesterday, too. It was... I guess it's because I was too much time on the chaos there.
No, it's... certain spots in the game can spawn chaos points at random. I think that's either like the 12% or 4%.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't remember ever seeing that either. It's a new one for me.
Yeah, it happened to me yesterday on the practice, but I guess it was because... Yeah, I thought that it was because I spent too much time there, but... guess not.
So chaos points are another interesting part in the game. Any enemy you fight in there gets a 50% stat boost, so hit points, strength, and magic. They also, if you end up defeating them, they have a permanent regen, which means they'll restore hit points per second as you fight them. So you can find yourself, depending on like the bigger enemies, in an unwinnable situation. If you defeat them in chaos, you get a higher leveled ability than you would normally get. You also get an extra EP, and you get 3 times the gil. So for farming, it would be like a good thing to do.
Yeah, you saw that I picked 1 soul seed. We will use that for the late game. It's really important to not skip it.
Yeah, and maybe just one more thing around the chaos. So there's a super boss in this game that kind of floats around in one of the areas. And if you decide to do it, you can actually fight that super boss in chaos, which makes it quite a lot harder.
Yeah, he goes from 11 million hit points to like 17 million on normal.
Yeah, and the big problem is that he gets regen as well, and it doesn't go away. So, yeah.
So here we're getting the Passion Rouge Garb that Rusta mentioned. It has a really good D-Protect and D-Shell that comes with it. It'll be the second of the third Garbs. This Garb we will be using for the rest of the run. D-Protect adds 33% to damage. For physical damage, D-Shell is 33% for magic damage. We're not too worried about magic damage in the run. Magic is just more of a tool to stagger. But the 33% damage from D-Protect is going to go a long way.
Yeah, so magic is actually very good in this game, but in the any percent context, it's very difficult to get a good magic-based ability that allows us to deal a lot of damage. If you're open to using DLC, there's a very, very, very good Garb called Spear Summoner, which is Yuna's Garb from FF10, and that one comes with a super powerful Elementa ability, so if you want to use that Garb, then I would say Magic is definitely the way to go.
So right
Talking
now
of
we're
using
going
garbs,
to...
though, I want to just say we have $5 from Anonymous. So do I win the Garb war for now, or is someone else gonna snipe for Garb 2 at the same time? Because he donates for Garb 1, so Garb 1 is in the lead for now.
Right.
Oh, nice.
And by the way, guys, could you remind us about the incentives? When do we close each one, just for the viewers?
The Chocobo one, I'd say would be closed. We don't really use the Chocobo past the probably about hour and 40-minute mark. It's coming up soon in probably about 15 minutes. Yeah, where we use it quite a bit, and then it's kind of just disappearance. So if you really want to get the most out of the Chocobo name, it's the good time to donate now. The masks will show up in about an hour, and then we can use that for the rest of the game. At any point in time, we can equip them.
Yeah, I'm not having too much luck right now with Imperil. Do you guys want to explain what Imperil is and what it does?
Are there other donation incentives while we're on this subject, and then we can talk about it?
And then the Garbs. I'm not too familiar with that donation incentive. Bosses' enemy patterns are random. RNG is not stuck to player inputs. The RNG is dictated between your console's game, your system game time, and how long the game's been running. So there is no way to manipulate it unless you're going to manipulate both clocks down to the frame.
So right now, he's fighting a Desert Sahagin. This guy has a 15% drop of Imperil, and Imperil is quite a bit of extra damage on all of the big bosses, so it's just like a mandatory thing for putting out the amount of damage we need to beat these guys. It's fought in chaos, meaning you have a double chance of getting it, so it's going to be 30% each shot, and we're just going to have to keep doing this until we get one. That's sort of the biggest RNG point of the entire run.
So Imperil increases elemental damage by 50%. So you have Imperil that's 50%, and then Deep Protect that's 33%. But when you inflict both of them, you get almost double damage. It's 99.5%. So a lot of the damage in the game is just going to be us using Bravery, which increases physical damage by 50%. Using an End spell. In this run we use End Frost, using Imperil and Deep Protect to get us roughly 3 times damage. And that's going to be how it carries us through the rest of the game with such low stats, that and abusing overclocks.
Wow, the game is not being very nice right now.
No.
Yeah, I'm not even getting any drop. I'm only getting the right.
Do you want to touch a little bit upon the special Blitz modifier with Imperil?
So if end spells, this game has 4 elemental blitzes and 4 elemental strikes. Gale Strike, Spark Strike, Frost Strike, and Flame Strike. If you have an end spell that correlates with the elemental strike you're doing, you get a 30% damage bonus. However, with blitzes, if you were to use something like Ice Blitz with End Frost, you would get a 60% damage increase on top of all the other modifiers. So much like 13, where you're just stacking modifiers with in accordance with the stagger gauge for damage. Here we're just going to be stacking as many modifiers as we can to make our low stats end up being quite high stats.
Okay.
Give her one more shot.
Yeah, I will give him one more shot. We have a special save created just in case this happened. And we don't get Imperil. So yeah, on that save we have Imperil and Soul City.
I mean, at least fighting the Sahagins, like finding the spawns, it's been pretty quick so far, so I think we can probably afford 2 more.
Yeah, I would say we
Yeah.
can try the 5th try. On a practice, I got a 5th try and I still got underestimated.
So if you're running the PC, a very generous member of community who's in the chat, Niji, created a PC drop mod. So if you're running on, if you're wanting to learn this on PC, and you don't want to deal with the Imperil resets, you can basically just use the mod to ensure yourself a 100% Imperil drop, whether it's in chaos or out of chaos, it doesn't matter. So basically, the only RNG in the game is just encounters and the phone booth.
Okay, last shot. We got Dispel and Deprotect. At least we got drops now. Maybe that's a sign.
First 3 with no drops is pretty. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a marathon run without some bad RNG, right?
Yeah. Feels bad, man.
Well, hey, the longer this takes, the more time there is for donations for.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, go for
the
donations right
incentives.
now.
Make sure to donate for the mask, the garbs, and to name the Chocobo. The naming the Chocobo is happening soon. It's basically in the next day, which is going to be quite fast. So if anyone has
Well,
a special name they want to get to,
You name him after you finish feeding him, right?
yes.
So that's still going to be a good amount of time because we'll have to go to Yogd and everything. So probably a good 15 minutes, I'd say.
Next. Okay, we're gonna load the save with Imperil. We didn't get any lag today. Yikes.
Oh yeah, and just one more thing about the PC drop mod. Niji just mentioned that you also get Magnet from the Chocobo Eater boss that we're going to fight in just a little bit. And Magnet is another ability that's really useful for one boss, or mini boss I should say. It's totally not needed for the speed run, but it saves about, I would say, 30 seconds if you get it. And it makes that fight a lot nicer, so...
Magnet itself is not a very strong spell. It, it's more for positional. It makes enemies drawn towards a center point, like a suction effect. But the reason it happens to be good for that one boss is that the boss, he only takes a certain amount of damage above a certain point, and we can't even get close to that point. And so most of our attacks do 1 damage. Magnet just happens to cost a small amount of ATB and hit 4 times, meaning you can just do a lot more damage than attacks or anything else would do.
So to be able to damage them, you would need to do over 65,535 damage. The game calls it a damage threshold. The next one that's even closest to that is Bunavelza Plus in hard mode, and it's set at like 2,500. So I don't know why they gave him such a ridiculous damage threshold. On top of it, he takes 10% damage from all elements, physicals and magicals. So unless you're really decked out or know how to use Army of One, there's just no way you're really in a new game setting going to be able to kill him without Magnet quickly.
Yeah. Have we touched on the concept of finishers yet?
No.
Okay, so maybe yeah, that's probably a good segue. So Magnet is one of the few abilities that don't have a finisher, which means that there's no extra delay and you can just spam it over and over and over again. Whereas most abilities will have a finisher move that's going to be more powerful, but there's going to be extra animation time, and then you can't just keep spamming it. So if you're using, I don't know, say Blizzard or Blizzara, you're gonna have to cast a few spells, and then after that, Lightning's gonna do a backflip. But you don't really get that with Magnet.
But another good thing with finishers is, outside of that one fight, the finisher for whatever spell you're using, Blizzard or Blizzara, the finisher is worth as much as the rest of the string. So for Blizzard, you have to cast it 5 times to get to the finisher. That finisher is worth as much in stagger power as the 4 spells before it. So if you're trying to stagger enemies, you really want to do full strings. And with Blitz, the finisher is a 50% attack bonus. So instead of Blitz being a 2.1 times modifier, it's a 3.15. Attack gets doubled a times 2 modifier. So it's a lot of little intricacies in the game that sadly we skip a lot in the speed run.
Yep, and you could see there, Shonen just picked up a Gale Strike chest. Unfortunately, his Gale Strike was not buffed, so there's a probability that you can get either a plus 10% wind bonus or a plus 80 strength. And the strength is the one that usually we care about, so unfortunately we didn't get it today.
That Gale Strike itself is actually a pretty funny ability in that it's used for exactly one fight. Just because there's one fight where Shonen is using it now, but it's not really necessary to use it right now. The fight that we need it for, just that boss happens to only take at a certain point stagger power from physical attacks, and so Gale Strike is just a physical attack that has stagger power. That's a lot more than normal attacks.
So the reason we debuffed the Gurngats 3 times is we end up getting a 3 times stagger bonus. So the more debuffs you have on Gurngats, the more stagger your spells will generate. So one Gale Strike was worth 3 Gale Strikes. So it saves quite a bit of time. For the routes that don't do Imperil and Chaos, they'll pick up a Defaith chest, which is on the way to the Chaos bubble, and it will serve just the same purpose as Imperil did in that fight.
One thing also worth mentioning is we mentioned that Imperil is used because it boosts elemental damage, and you may wonder what elemental attack we'll be using throughout the run, and the answer is that there is an accessory that gives you an automatic inspell at the start of every fight, and so in this case we'll be using the Water God Bracer, Circlet Bracer?
Yep.
Bracelet. Okay, yeah, and which gives ice elemental or infrost at the start of the fight. So all of Lightning's attacks will get the Imperil bonus for the fights where we do use Imperil. But now you may notice that the time is getting close to 5 a.m. And we still have 4 and change EP left. I believe next we'll be using a teleport to do one more quick errand here, and then that'll put us past 5 a.m. And so we'll just end the day after just ending an encounter. But that also means that these encounters cannot be fought. There are times where it doesn't matter if you get into a fight, you can just escape it and not worry about the hour, but for most days, you have to conserve your time to make sure you get to the right place at the right time.
Yeah, so right now, after the Guran catch, we're gonna talk to Adonis in order to tell him that we completed the mission, and we're gonna get introduced to one recurrent character from the 13 trilogy.
So we're just kind of starting a bunch of the main quests, but not really finishing much of anything. It just works out kind of nicely with how the route goes. Heading to the Dead Dunes from getting the Crest of Etro is just a minor time save. So while we're here, we might as well just finish as much as we can to end the day.
And generally the quests end with a boss fight, and so we're trying to go around and collect all of the things we need to power ourselves up before getting to the boss fight so we can beat the bosses as quickly as possible.
So there is no leveling up in this game. Fighting encounters don't give you anything but gold or gil EP items. They don't give you stat bonuses. The only way you can gain stats is from buffed abilities, what King mentioned with the Gale Strike, or completing quests. By far the best way to get stats is by doing just the main quests or the 5 main bosses of the game. Side quests offer very minimal stat gains over just doing a main boss. So in the run we'll be doing just the mandatory side quests we have to get through the game.
Also, as you can see, I don't know if we talk about it, running with the ATB.
Oh, so the running ATB is governed by whatever Garb is in the first slot. It will use however much the maximum ATB is for running. You don't want it to deplete into the red. It regenerates 50% as slow, or 50% as fast, I should say. So every time you end up just depleting the bar, you just end up wasting 2 or 3 seconds every time.
And as you could see, when I was sliding through the sand, I didn't consume any ATV. So the optimal thing to do on the dead dunes is to use the maximum ATV you can with your Garb and then get to a sliding section so you recover ATV while keeping the maximum speed possible. That would be really optimal.
Yeah. Yeah, so Lightning has 3 different animations that you can do that for. So whenever she's sliding, if she's going up a ladder, or if you jump from a really high, from high above, she's going to do like a rolling animation in some of the garbs. So during those times, you ideally don't want to use the running button.
Yeah, one of Light's, or I should say the Savior's, greatest powers is her ability to regain stamina while climbing ladders. With that power.
Yeah.
Poor Link from Breath of the Wild gets exhausted while climbing. Lightning.
I was going to say that.
Alright, so we are heading to the South Station in order to get to the Wildlands, so the Chocobo incentive is pretty soon to be met.
Yes, we will be naming the Chocobo in about 10-15 minutes.
So let's see, what's the current name that we have right now?
The current one is still Batmobile.
Yes.
Batmobile. So
so
if you wanna bob that, then now is the time to donate. Sorry, Dinah, I cut you off.
Oh, no, it's all right. So it's kind of neat in a sense where each area, each part of the continent is dedicated to something unique. The Dead Dunes is kind of your debuff haven. If you want debuffs, Dead Dunes is the way to go. The Wildland specializes in elemental potions and the elemental bracelets. This is the only place you can find all 4 of them. We don't need all 4 of them though, so we're just grabbing the one. Yusnon is your good source for physical base damage in the terms of bravery potions or velvet bouncer. Luxarian's kind of just your general all for a little bit of smattering of everything.
Yeah. Right now we're gonna be running quite a lot in order to get to one boss battle, so if you wanna read some donations or anything, go ahead.
Sure, I just want to point out the bid wars that we have for this run. We are still mentioning them because they are running throughout the entire run. We have naming the Chocobo that is coming right up. We have the Garb choice, we have the Mask choice, we have plenty incentives for plenty other runs. You can check them out on our site when you want to donate. Also, one thing I was gonna mention as well is that you can either donate to support the ESA, you can also cheer on Twitch, and you can subscribe on Twitch. And during ESA Together, the first 800 subs to ESA will be matched by a $250 $2.50 donation, from our sponsor HyperX. So basically, your sub counts double if you sub for the first 800 people. Gift subs also matter, and Twitch Prime subs also matter. So make sure to use those if you have.
Alright, so now Shonen is just running around and going to essentially find out that our soon-to-be Chocobo is in trouble, so we're gonna go and rescue him.
Yeah.
One interesting thing about this fight is this Chocobo Eater, or as the community calls him, Cheater, starts with much less hit points than a normal one would. It's to show that the Chocobo was actually putting up a fight. So here Shonen's going to use 2 overclocks on the fight. He's going to use 15 Gale Strikes to get Chocobo Eater to the red bar, and then he's going to break the stagger with Blitz. So that Blitz finisher is worth 3 finishers.
Oh, I got one. I think I got Blizzara. I didn't see the drop properly.
Yeah, you got Blizzara.
Yeah.
So this is where the magnet mod or the PC drop mod would come into play. Chocobo Eater has a 22.5% chance to drop Imperil, or not Imperil, Blizzara and Magnet. So the PC drop mod would just guarantee that you got the Magnet. The Blizzara drop still RNG, but there is a backup that only takes a couple of seconds.
Yeah, so basically we are going to skip one chest at least on the run. I guess it's something.
I'll follow the dock back to Canopus Farms.
Hey, if we have a second, have there been any recent donations?
There are actually. We have $11 from Roosta. I was
Nice.
donating to get Shonen use modern strats, and it's for Garb 3. It's in the lead by $1.
Well played, sir.
Whatever it takes.
Alright. You win this time.
So I guess I can mention here that, so the current loadout, the focus is the Velvet Bouncer for damage and the Passion Rouge for debuffs. So we're using both of those. Eventually we'll get a really nice Garb in the second slot, but we're just using the default Equilibrium. But just from a speed perspective, the Passion Rouge, you usually start the fight with a debuff, and it turns out that you can just hold buttons at the start of the fight, and so you can hold down the button for Deprotect and save like a third of a second by using this Garb as your main Garb.
Hope, what do you think?
The fun thing too is
Also,
that
it's pretty-
because I'm really used to using the Garb one as my default, it's going to mess up a little bit with my muscle memory, so that's one of the fun parts of this incentive. To
Yes,
throw the
that's
run.
part of absolutely thinking about this when I donated, so this is all part of the plan.
Yeah, so now Shonen is just essentially doing the, so as you could see, like the Chocobo is not doing too good, so we have to feed him to be able to heal him up. So that's what we're going to do. So now we're going to run around to Yogd Village, and on the way there we have to collect some fertilizers. So that's what we're gonna do.
Collect fertilizer to make patches where we can grow the
Yep.
Gasol greens.
Yep.
This has now turned into Animal Crossing.
Shoutouts to Animal Crossing.
Can we say another donation?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
We have $15 from Dino Itari. And it's also for Garb 3.
Alright.
So Garb 3 is heavily in the lead now.
I couldn't think of anything witty to say. It's too early in the morning. 99%
Long time
gold
donor,
streaks.
first time viewer.
Long time donator, first time viewer.
Yeah.
I also couldn't think of anything we did to say, but that didn't stop me from trying.
I know. I took the easy way out.
That's unfortunate though, because that means I'm gonna have to donate
God.
$17 to get Garb 2 in the lead when it's appropriate. Basically, if you donate for the wrong Garb, you can make me double the donations so I can get back in the right.
Yeah, I think this is a nice spawn.
So right now we're just heading towards Yogd. We have to go this way anyway to unlock the village, because we'll be teleporting back here a few times, but along the way there's these fertilizers by these shovels we're picking up, and this guy, Cole, we're going to talk to finish this quest and let us start planting.
King, are you getting anxiety from all the mushrooms being skipped? Because I am.
Yeah, so what Dine is referring here is that, so in any percent, we pretty much try to avoid picking up any items, but there's another category which is called New Game Dash, or New Game Plus Dash, and Dash refers to Disaster, all side quests, and Heroic Guard. So it's basically two abilities that you get from the super bosses in hard mode, and then all side quests. And in that category, you have to pick up a lot of mushrooms and a lot of flowers everywhere. So now I get anxiety anytime I see mushrooms being skipped and flowers being skipped. I'm just kidding, but yeah.
Okay, so an important thing here is that we're gonna put this fertilizer in the ground and then plant the Gasol greens. We need 7 Gasol greens in order to feed Odin enough to make, the Angel of the Hall enough to spoil it
It's okay.
to make him start being able to run around and in particular fly, because he has to be able to fly to unlock certain areas, which if people found a way to get to these areas without flying, it would be a massive time save in the speedrun, but we have not discovered this yet. But it takes 6 hours for each batch of Gasol greens, and you can only grow 4 at a time. So 2 batches, 1 of 4, 1 of 3. But we're going to be doing this right now, so there's only a couple more minutes before we'll finish feeding him and rename him to whatever it is.
An interesting glitch on PC, once again, because this game wasn't meant to run at 60 frames per second, and the floor is made of tissue paper. So if you're to play it on PC, you'd have to change it back to fixed FPS or 30. If you plant the seed, it has a chance to fall through the floor and just continually fall into the ground. So it'll make the patch unusable. So it usually indicates it by having like a mirror-like finish on top, which means the green has grown, but it's so far into the ground, lightning can't cause the interactive prompt to happen, which makes the plot unusable. So on PC, it's either you got to take a couple of seconds to reduce your frames, or you can just YOLO it and hope for the best.
It is interesting though how did that happen?
It's
Did they
something
not
to do with
test
the,
it?
I think it's
Or
something to
did
do with
they
like
just like
well, there was posts on the Steam forum, and then Squaresoft said that they couldn't reproduce it. So then there was a bunch of troll posts about even Square's computers couldn't run their ports.
I was gonna say they must have had a good computer.
This game in particular is very single core dependent, or very single core performance dependent.
Look, the world's ending. Let's just plant some vegetables. Everyone's got to eat, okay,
Yeah.
including the Batmobile.
These
All
things
right.
happen. You need to panic.
Yeah, I guess I should mention, while Diane was talking about the single core performance, we do have a load remover, which was actually built by Roosta, who's doing commentary with us. So if you're on PC and you don't have a very good computer, you can still use the loadless or game time to get an accurate representation of how good your time is.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
No, go ahead.
We're still working as a community to try to make the loadless time the primary timing method, which I think will be a big step in just try to even out the playing field for everyone.
Just as a point of reference, though, people were joking earlier about how much loading there is in this game, but it's about 20 minutes over the course of 2.5 hours, maybe 25 or 30 on the PS3 instead of the PC.
okay, so after feeding the Chocobo, I'm gonna name it. I guess it's still the same name, right?
Batmobile.
Yeah, it's Batmobile. Should I
Alright.
close it now?
Yeah, close it.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's officially Batmobile with the capital B and the rest is normal.
Sure.
And while I'm closing it, I can tell you about another donation because you got $30 from King SPI. Saying Kupopo. Great. But it's going for a Retro Lightning Mask. And now it's in the lead by $1.
Yes.
So how much?
Might as well do it right. So, yeah.
How much do I have to donate to get you to use Vengeance? That's my question.
Ooh.
We can buy Vengeance
Yeah, we can.
after the null.
But you don't go back to Yogg for any particular reason, right?
We go back to Yogg after Null to go through the Rocky Crag to get the Water God bracelet.
Yeah.
Oh, so do you use Vengeance then?
Not currently in the route. It's something
okay.
we're looking into.
Don't go too ahead of
Oh,
yourself
right.
first.
I remember now. I thought it was a problem on PS3, and I forgot that's because in the future, I think that you should figure out a way to do Fireworm instead of Water God, and then if you're doing Fireworm, then you can't go back to Yogg. So
Yeah, we're Shonen and I were talking. We're going to use when we update the route. We're thinking of using a lot of the PC strats. As Rusa mentioned, really early in the run, there's a couple of strats that are the couple of the route ideas that won't work on console. On PC, they usually end this day going to Saz. Unfortunately, because the non-stable frame rate of the console, we end up timing out before we end up starting the main quest. So that might be something like we kill the day and then just teleport from Saz to Yusnan.
The pathing to the water god bracer and needing to get different in potions makes it a little bit slower, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things where you have to make a lot of pieces fit differently if you want to change the item.
I think it works if you were to skip Blizzara, right? If you didn't go and
You're still
it doesn't work.
You're still 12 seconds short.
Wow. Never mind.
Yeah, it's a pretty long stretch. So,
well, running through the wildlands, the PS3 dips to like 25 frames at times. 25, like the lowest spike I seen was like 22.
people do sleep, and Lightning's sleeping, but we're first person, so we just don't see any of her sleeping. We just get a loading screen.
Lightning does a lot of sleeping. So it's currently... so I am Dainuatari for commentating. You two want to introduce yourself? Chat's been asking about commentates.
Yeah, my username is King SPI.
And I'm Roosta.
So it is currently day 4, and we haven't done much of anything.
Me in real life.
Yes. So, after this, we're gonna go fight the first, or one of the 5 main bosses in the game. Each main boss you defeat gives you an extra day. Side quests only count towards an extra day after you've beaten all 5 main quests. So basically, as the requirement for the game is beat 5 bosses and then go right to the last day.
A while ago, there was a discussion on the Discord about everyone was talking about their sleep schedules, and this is when I was at my peak of Lightning Returns running. So I was just like, "Oh man, for the past almost 2 weeks, I've been sleeping 21 hours a day." But I'm about to save the world.
So here, Shonen picked up a garb called Electronica. The 4 elemental garbs you can pick up in Wildlands have a special property where it will do thunder, thunder, then Thundera instead of thunder, 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 thunder. Thundera is nice because it's a AoE ability. So the 2 spells before it are single target, and the finisher is AoE. It allows you to get to the finisher faster. You do lose a little bit of stagger over the course of the combo, but the real meat and potatoes is the finisher.
Okay, so here's a little bit of a tricky place. I can get caught by some fanatics and I will be forced to fight them. Also, I have to be careful with my jumps in order to not fall down. I will be really slow since I have to go up again.
If you fall down, you can pick up the battle axe. Bring back the old strats.
Dance game.
Yeah, I think this is maybe like a good segue just to mention that, especially for the any % category, in the recent year or so, there's been quite a lot of, I would say, marginal gains that we've made. And all of those improvements have been like 5 to 10 seconds, and which doesn't seem like a lot, but when you have a lot of those, it actually becomes like pretty good. So the times have really gone down recently, especially on PC. I think there's not as many console runners, but even Shonen was able to get, I think, sub 220 for your PB, so that's really good. And there's quite a bit of a big time difference between PC and console because of loading screens.
So we have our first main boss, Noel from 13-2. This is the boss King was mentioning earlier, where one of his stagger conditions is if you block, you get a very perfect block, you get a very generous stagger bonus. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do 3 Gale Strikes and then debuff and then go to town. So you might notice that Shonen's damage just jumped exponentially. Noel has his second stagger condition is launch. which means the only time an ability can break it is if null gets launched. Launch is an auto ability, which means an ability like attack turns into launch. The game's code is kind of a little weird where it thinks Blitz is going to turn into launch, but it can't. So every one of Blitz's hits get a 3 times damage bonus on top of the 2 times damage bonus for staggering him. This trick works for any enemy that has a launch condition. So Null, Astra Protoflorian, and Cyclops. So it's a very, very, very quick way just to go through a boatload of hit points.
Okay, on this section
as
I'm
I
going
mentioned
to
before-
feed the Chocobo in order to heal to the next level. So I can jump one... Well, there's one specific jump that I need with that level of healing.
One quick point, since we just fought Null, is the Gale Strike that we picked up earlier was literally just to reach that stagger condition that Dine mentioned. Like, it takes a physical attack to reach that condition, and Gale Strike is just like several times better than any other physical we have at this point. So
Yeah, you tried it with just blitzes, and didn't it take like 2 overclocks in like 34 seconds or something, Roosta?
yeah, it wasn't great.
It was nothing to write home about.
Yeah, definitely not.
So here we got Odin to the gliding status.
Ooh, the Angel of Valhalla, you mean?
So
Batmobile.
Batmobile, sorry, yes. So we got Batmobile to gliding status. The purpose of giving him the greens is you have to heal him. So when we first got him, after we killed the Chocobo Eater, he was badly wounded, and the greens are a way to heal him. So when you feed him, each item has a certain amount of healing points. So the first milestone is getting him up and walking around, and then we feed him enough greens to get him to the gliding. This allows us to get to the Rocky Crag and to a village later on for Polte for another main boss.
Yeah. Also here we're going to be running quite a lot, so if you guys want to read some donations or anything, go for it. It's a good time.
Of course, I'm going to use this time to talk about speedrunstore.com. Do you like t-shirts or hoodies? It's a great way to buy one because ESA has some really good ones with their designs on the site. I have one of them. It's really good. I bought it on ESA Winter 2020 a couple of months ago, and it's really cool. You can still buy it. It's on the site. Once again, speedrunstore.com. Highly recommend it.
So here Shonen's going to get the Water God bracelet. This will give us Enfrost for free at the start of every battle for 60 seconds. So our Blitz now will be an ice element, which will also play into the needing for Imperil.
And there's only one fight in this entire run that's longer than 60 seconds, so that's not a concern.
Yeah. Well, I could make some longer than 50 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a recurring theme in this speedrun in that if you play the game casually, a lot of the bosses are pretty difficult if you let them attack and kind of fight them as they were intended. Unfortunately, we have the power of Overclock, and we're just going to stack all the buffs and debuffs, so eventually all the bosses just melt really, really quickly, except one.
Yeah, when you're doing 3 to 5 times your normal damage, not a lot of the bosses last long, especially with the power of unlimited ATB.
Since Lightning is riding on the Batmobile, I just wanted to give a quick na 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 Lightning.
So here we're starting another main quest. They need to throw in all the characters. So Saz gets his time to shine. Dodge has been asleep for the last 500 years in a coma. His soul has been separated into 5 different fragments. And Saz is like, I've been all over the world, I can't find him. And then we find one right outside of his house. To be fair, it did fall from the sky. So the Beloved's gift Shonen picked up before teleporting to Null, we'll be trading that in for another piece of the Dodge fragments.
Ah,
So
nice
there's
spawn.
5 of them in total. Thankfully, we don't have to. I think the Beloved's Gift is probably the one that's furthest out of the way. Maybe Cactair.
By the way, that little Chocobo cutscene can be skipped by teleporting out of Seth's house and then finishing the quest and coming back.
Yeah.
All right.
Now we come up to day 6. Day 6 is about 1/5 of the whole speed run. I wish I was lying, but it's not. Day 6 goes on forever. This is one of the one of the points where we only have 12 hours in the day, but we make the most of it.
Good to see you again.
The big reason why this day takes so long is that we're taking the bulk of the day is going to be spent taking care of quests in Yusnon, and we use teleporting to get around in the run when we want to go somewhere else to pick something up, or when it's not ideal to finish what we're doing. But the only place you can teleport to in Yusnon is the Yusnon Station, which is not close to any important points in the quest. And so it turns out for pretty much everything here, the fastest way to do it is to just continue along the quest from where you are and not teleport or anything.
So here we're gonna trade the Beloved's Gift for 1 fragment of Dutch with Chocolina. That's basically the main reason why we cannot skip that chest.
So that takes care of 2 of the 5 fragments. And it's important to remember which of these you stun, because if you've missed one, you have to go back and get it. And runs have died because people, skipped the Soul Seed quest, which gives you 1, and then you end up at Saz wondering why he's not there.
Is there a reason he's running on PS3 and not PC? Yes, this game doesn't run good on mid-range
I'd
PCs.
like to see both of them do that again someday.
That's sort of a really big debate between PC and PS3 for a lot of Final Fantasy games, particularly the 13 trilogy. And there's sort of a philosophical difference of the PC runs faster, but the consoles are all equal playing ground because everyone runs the same. So
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of the PC being a buggy mess, I would say Lightning Returns is probably the best port out of the trilogy. It definitely has a couple of tiny glitches, but generally it runs pretty smooth compared to the other 2 games.
and most of the glitches are the annoying kind, not the fun, speedy kind.
Yeah.
Yeah. However, the decoy glitch is definitely
true.
a
Yes,
really
that's true.
very good beneficial glitch, which operates on the same lines as the Gashal Greens. So there's a certain boss we fight where the floor is also made of tissue paper, and the decoy basically summons a Moogle with 5,000 hit points, and it's basically like a sentinel from the games where the enemy will want to target that. And on PC, it lives safely under the floor, where very few attacks can hit it.
Very few, but there are some.
Yes, it's still a risk, but most of the time he's just kind of taking a nap somewhere.
Can I reach it?
Ah well, that's a good spawn actually. Okay,
So
here I
here we
only can
start-
escape twice. Yeah, the predeterminate garbs are messing up with my head. Alright, yeah, I'm on the 3rd garb, not on the first one. Wow.
So here we can only escape 2 encounters because the fireworks shops that are set up around the city close at a certain time. So if we escape too many times, we either have to just wait for another day, which is bad in a sense, or your run dies. So after day 6, all enemies and bosses get a increase in stats. Snow for today is still Snow Plus, but a lot of the enemies will gain 33 hit points, or 33% hit points, which makes a minor bit of difference for the Slaughterhouse, just because you end up wasting a small amount of time just doing a couple of extra attacks.
Here is the only source of food materials left for the people in the city.
Yeah, so everything we're doing here is essentially to be able to infiltrate the palace once again. So you might have remembered from the first 4 minutes of the game, we were in the patron's palace. So we're trying to get back in there, and for that we have to be able to get into the Augur's quarter. And to be able to do that, we need an ID card, which we're going to find conveniently in this area.
How did you dodge both those hoplites without them attacking you?
Because I'm really good.
That was very impressive.
Yes, that was.
I'm just gonna assume that that's a PS3 thing because that would not work on
Yeah,
PC.
yeah, of course.
No.
It's the console now.
That's a shonen thing.
Now everyone running on console.
So here, Cyclops, we're just going to use the same strat we did for Noel. Just get him to stagger.
Hey, we got Magnet, Pog. Can we get some
Hey.
Pogs on the chat?
Yay!
Poggers.
Yeah, so Magnet is a 22.5% drop. So we can get it either from Cyclops or the Chocobo Eater, which we fought earlier.
So here, we're almost done with the warehouse.
I will say that I do have some doubts around that 22.5% drop rate because
Yeah.
in my
Showing an
experience,
ID card.
in my experience, I have not gotten that 22% at the time. It's been much lower.
When Imperil at 15% seems more likely than the 22.5%.
Pepe hands.
That reminds me of the Gen 3 of Pokemon when you missed all the rock slides when it was an 80% probability.
Or the Chrono Cross when you have the 99% hit rate and you still miss quite a bit.
Yeah.
Alright, so we're pretty much done with the warehouse section, and now it's going into Running Simulator version 2.
So yeah, good place for donations, definitely.
Oh yeah, running simulator. We love those, right? And like some good prizes. Some good prizes you can get for donating to this marathon. Because if you donate 15, 20 or 25 collectively throughout the entire marathon, you can get some awesome prizes. For example, HyperX headsets, HyperX mouse, HyperX mousepad, French indie game bundle. You can check all those prizes found at prizes.esamarathon.com. So make sure to donate towards awesome incentives, including the ones that are during this run. Wink, wink. To make sure you are eligible to earn those precious prizes.
So there's also donations going on for which mask Lightning can wear. And then also what Garb is in the lead. So there's still quite a few. That's the Garb in the lead is a rolling donation, or rolling incentive, I guess.
Yeah, as soon as one of the choices is winning, the runner will instantly change his garb.
Yeah.
And the mask choices come in a couple of, like 10 or 20 minutes. Am I remembering correctly?
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, about that.
Right at the end of day 6, right?
Yeah, right now Retro Lightning Mask is in the lead with $30, and next is Sarah Mask with $29, so it's a $1 difference.
Alright.
Yeah, so Shonen here picked up some bravery potions. There's been an alternative strategy recently that Dine actually brought to the community where we can pick up an item called the Thorn of Courage, which is a bracelet that gives us auto bravery in exchange of 5% of our HP. And bravery lasts, 30 seconds?
Yeah.
But yeah, the route that Shonen is using, he's just going to use some bravery potions instead.
It works out if we grab the Thorn of Courage. We end up timing out before handing in the main quest.
Yeah, I already tried to,
Yeah.
just in case with the SST for some reason we got in time, but yeah, still doesn't work.
We end up being something like 3 minutes short with like optimal movement,
Yeah.
which are 3 in-game minutes.
It's not a big difference, but I think I think you timed it to, what was that, about 10, 15 seconds of
Yeah, it's
coin gain?
about 15 seconds faster. And it really helps free up the gill route a little bit.
I think it's something that Savas is also working on.
So here we bought the Kiku Ichimanji and the Dragoon's Gauntlet. The Kiku is by far the strongest sword you can buy in a new game setting. It's got something like 520 attack. The Dragoon's Gauntlet adds another 100. So this is going to be basically the finishing touch to everything we need for damage. So Lightning just got a nice 300 attack increase.
Eorzea, huh? Sounds nice enough.
Yeah, still, if there are some donations or anything, we will be running quite a bit before the battles.
Another running simulator. Just a reminder
Yeah.
that there are bids that you can donate for during this run. As we've mentioned, the Garb choice and the mask choice. Garb 3 is in the lead by 26, the next is Garb 1 with $10, and Garb 2 has $5. And this is a reoccurring donation incentive, so whenever one is in the lead, it gets changed immediately by Shonen. So make sure to screw him over like some of the people in the Discord did already.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Right now, I'm actually adapting pretty well to the Garb 3, so if you change it right now, it's going to be quite messy again.
Well, unfortunately, once we finish the Slaughterhouse, the prize we get from that is the Midnight Mauve, which you have to equip in order to continue the story after that point. So we're going to be waiting for donations until we can continue the story. So we have to get that to get the $20 before we continue the story. We'll just have to put the controller down.
How much for the Makote Garb? The Makote Garb sadly isn't used in the any percent. It's not used in any of the speedruns. Magic Slash is
in one of them, but
yes, not
anymore.
The Makote Magic Slash is just not. King actually routed out Makote Dress from Aeronite.
Yeah, just a few days ago.
Yeah.
Easy for you to say.
So Makote Dress has a unique ability called Magic Slash, which is a physical-based ability that hits both physical and magical weakness, which is a good / bad thing. For Aeronite, for example, when you get stagger, you get a 5.5 times damage from physical and magical. So with Aeronite and Magic Slash, you end up getting a 48 times damage boost. Where with most enemies, you just get a very, very minor magic boost because the magic multiplier is just so low. On top of it, Magic Slash doesn't have the greatest attack modifier to begin with.
Right, so right now we're gonna start the Slaughterhouse. There are quite a lot of battles that we have to beat in order to get the Midnight Mauve.
Although there are some fights, a lot of these are going to be familiar faces. We've seen before.
Yes.
First one is pretty simple. We're just gonna straight up blitz.
Yeah, and if you notice, the enemies are actually named differently. I think they did it this way because they didn't want the enemies to count in the normal extinction rate. So in this game, there's a mechanic where if you fight enough of some enemies and defeat them, you can actually extinct certain species. So I forget exactly for gremlins, I think you have to fight maybe 80 of them. And after that, the next gremlin that you're going to see will be like a bright pink / purple. And that's considered to be an Omega or a last one. So that enemy will be much stronger than the usual enemies.
120 for gremlins.
Ooh, wow, that's a lot.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good perfect guard.
No, that was a magic.
Yeah, that was a blizzard.
Oh,
I think I still got hit.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
The last.
You can tell what hits because of like what he gets broken with. Like, it was deep protect there, so it was magic. Or sorry, unprotected.
However it happens, I have
So here now we're just gonna fight Zaltis, and then we're gonna fight his younger brother. So Zaltis is what gets us the Midnight Mob dress. And then we gotta fight another one to get a dodge fragment. So Zaltis takes 1.5 times stagger from Blizzara and from ice and thunder elements. So it's really preferred to use them here over, say, like fire or wind. And then Shonen just did the couple of Gale Strikes in the beginning. As Rusta mentioned from the prologue Zaltis, you get a 15 times stagger bonus. So those 3 Gale Strikes just set up nicely where Blitz ends up breaking stagger.
Yeah, and those 2 Zaltis fights are kind of nice with this route because we picked up the Water God bracelet. In some of the other routes, we end up picking up the Fireworm bracelet, which gives us Fire. So in those fights here, we would be using Frost potions.
Evil has a price.
In the meantime, can I read off some donations?
Sure.
Absolutely.
So we have $5 from Reflection Zero. This is all because it's worth it. And it's $5 for Sarah Mask, so now this is in the lead. Right at the end of the bid war. And KKPC player, greetings from Germany. Let us change the Garb, and it's Garb 1. So I believe Garb 1 is in the lead now.
Perfect, because I'm gonna mini right
That's
now.
perfect.
Yeah, well timed.
So
Thank
is this indeed in the lead, and this marks the end of my shift. So I'm gonna be going off the reading shift, but don't worry, I'm leaving you in the very important hands of Nordic Soy. He's gonna handle you from now on.
Thank you very much for the
So good luck
donations.
with the rest of the run.
Thank you. Thanks a lot
Thank
for
you
the
very much.
readings. And shoutouts to Reflections, a really well-known person in the community.
So Midnight Mauve has a couple of nice, interesting properties. One, the Garb gives you plus 30 to maximum ATB, which means now since it's the Garb we're using, we also have a little bit more ATB for running. It also comes with a Fyra level 3. So instead of the raw spells costing 25 ATB, it only costs 21. This game has like a leveling up mechanic for abilities, where if you start from scratch at a level 1, max it out, upgrade it to a level 2 and do that, you can decrease the amount of ATB the skills need. So it's not much, but saving 4 ATB is better than nothing per spell.
This is a broadcast from the Public Safety Office, Houston branch of the Order.
I was actually doing the math of how much I'd have to donate to get Midnight Mauve and Equilibrium Plus as the default, but the heroic donator saved me. Can I donate to get a custom color for the Midnight Mauve?
The incentive got rejected because there are a lot of colors, but I don't know.
So here we finished all the fetch quests, and now we're breaking into the castle. So what happens is basically Lightning's like, I really want to blow something up. And the guy's like, go talk to the fireworks director. So we gave him fireworks, and he's like, if you want to blow stuff up, you got to look good. So we got the dress. And he's like, all right, we can blow stuff up now. So we end up blowing up the set, which causes the wall around the patron's castle to collapse. And then now we're just backtracking back to the tutorial area. Just to remind you, this is still day 6.
Yeah.
Ooh, shoutouts to the Cyclops.
Exactly, that's what I was gonna say. I think that's basically the scariest encounter that you can get here. If we get it right in front of it, that happened on my PV. What I do is just walk a little bit in order to get its animation attack, and then I can pass it safely. But yeah, it's a little bit tricky because it depends how close it appears. So
You can. depending on how long it would take to get around it, it's probably faster to avoid the fight.
Okay, but you can overclock because since you get 2 EP from winning. I
Yeah,
think.
you can overclock. Also, shoutouts to Scatana.
Yeah, if you're going for the Thorn of Courage item, you actually have to go across a couple of chaos fields right there, which makes it really dicey because it's you're very likely to get a Cyclops encounter, and they are very hard to dodge.
They are thick boys.
Yes, and they have a very long reach. So this is a hot spot for chaos zones. You'll be seeing quite a bit of them. This is also the last point to get a soul seed, if you haven't picked one up prior to this area.
Yeah, I picked one. I just check it with King on the save file before starting, just in case.
Crushed under their fear of becoming Seath and cursing our fates. It was only
Another interesting thing here is I just noticed you're actually doing this, Shonen, but it's like sort of a habit that runners get into where most Garbs, when you jump off of a ledge and you land, you'll do an action roll. But if you have running ATP, it's faster to just cancel the action roll by doing a little jump. But Midnight Mauve, as a fancy dress, she doesn't want to get dirty, so she doesn't do action rolls. So when you land on the ground in Midnight Mauve, you don't have to roll, or you don't have to do an extra little jump.
Yeah,
I never noticed that.
She also gets a special, I don't know what you would call it, like animation when she's riding the angel. She's actually gonna be like sideways.
Well, you wouldn't want to
Pretty
straddle. You wouldn't want to straddle something wearing that, I don't think.
That's a good point.
Ah,
Well, it's nice the game just didn't default to the one animation for everything.
Yeah, and the battle that Shonen just got into is that specific area is kind of wonky because the camera, it's hard to describe, but the camera is very wonky after that specific cutscene, so you kind of have to reposition the camera.
that was quite bad though.
One thing about the chaos inside of the Yusnan Palace is that it makes the cameraman very drunk. And so there's several points in this palace where the camera just whips around and the controls have no bearing on what Lightning is doing, and it's difficult to avoid enemies at those moments.
Yeah, that's probably a better way to put it.
He imbibed in the revelry a little too much.
So in some routes you're allowed to escape one encounter. In this route we're not allowed to escape any. It's kind of the dealer's choice if you feel that's worth it or not. Having the one escape is nice, but then also trying to find an encounter to end the day can kind of be a little bit of a downer at times.
Yeah, so in this room there's actually a skip that you can do, which we call the crate skip. So instead of going around like Shonen did, you can jump on the crates in the middle of the room, and you can, it's pretty tight, especially on console, but you can actually jump to the platform if your setup is good enough. It saves maybe 7-ish seconds, and it saves you from the potential of getting one encounter, but on console it's not super easy, so Shonen took the safe way, which is
It's
a
very
good
hard
decision.
on console.
Yeah. And if you end up failing it a couple of times, you can end up timing out before the day is supposed to finish. Because we still have one thing to do after the Patron's Palace.
Yeah. On that section is where the bid war for the mask is going to end, so put your donations in if you want to change the mask selected.
Well, right now the mask is still sitting on the Sarah mask at $34. Retro Lightning is behind it at $30, so that's a pretty cheap way to make and change the mask if you want to get those donations in.
That's not a rolling donation, right?
No, the mask is not the rolling one. It's the Garb.
Okay.
I was just wondering if I could make him up in the menu a couple more times.
But that being said, if you do want to make the change on the Garb, that is also a $4 difference between the current leader with the Equilibrium and Mist Wizard is just behind at $26. So that's $4 away from rolling it over back to the Mist Wizard Passion Rogue. Passion
It
fruit.
is, it is a bit more optimal to have the Midnight Mauve on at this point. We had to put it on because it's necessary to get into the palace, but the Midnight Mauve also has the most starting UTB of all the Garbs we have equipped right now, and so it lets you run the furthest before you have to start recharging. It doesn't actually improve your average speed at all, but it lets you run from a full ATB a little bit further, and you get refills every time you fight something. So pretty much after every fight, you can run a little bit further in this dress than any other right now.
Nice Anubis fight.
Thank you. I got a really good position.
Incidentally, how far off are we from closing out that mask incentive?
Maybe 10 minutes at most.
Less, because it's just gonna run straight to the Mughals. Maybe 5 minutes.
All right, well, you heard it from the folks here. If you want to get your donations in to choose which mask we get to wear for the rest of the game, you better get those in right.
I'm just trying to decide whether I like Diane or King more.
Go for King. He's a safe bet.
I have no strong feelings about masks, so.
So Snow here, you know, Snow has Snow Plus. He's a little bit stronger than he was if we would fight him on day 5. So here Shonen triggers Recast. Recast happens when he's hit by 2 spells. And when Recast is over, you get a 3 times stagger bonus. So now Snow has Unprotected, Deprotected, and Imperil, and he's also weak to fire. So we're doing about 4.5 to 5 times normal damage.
That was my best time ever. in this fight.
Nice.
And that
Another
was a
nice
boss.
thing about Another nice thing about this fight is that so we timed the stagger to happen right after the recast, and so he's in the middle of a launching animation when you set your overclock, and then he sort of leans over, and it happens that just doing it this way, you get the back attack damage. So you get like I think it's a 1.2 multiplier just from hitting from behind.
Yes, on that, this game also has something called a positional modifier. So if you attack an enemy from behind their frontal plane, you get a 20% damage increase. It's basically a perfect. You get a permanent perfect attack. But the good thing is the positional adds on top of the perfect, so you can end up getting a nice 40% damage boost with perfect times and back attacks.
Alright, so there are only 3 set of battles left to close the mask incentive. So yeah, go for it if you want.
So right now, the Retro Lightning Mask just took the lead with a $5 donation from King Spy. That's now leading by $1. So go ahead, get those donations in if you want to make that change.
Alright. You can read any donation right now if you want.
That was the donation from King Spy.
Ah, okay.
So here we're just making a trek to get another dodge fragment. This is also a main quest, so it's kind of nice we get 2 for the price of 1. So here there's a fight with 3 battles of dryads.
Ready for this?
Casually, these dryads can be a real pain. When they get down to below 25% health, they'll start calling for friends. So you can really find yourself in a sticky situation with like 5 or 6 dryads just sitting in a circle healing themselves.
Yeah, with this current strat on console, it's actually really scary, the set of 2 dryads, because I cannot overclock. So I actually have magnet. So yeah, because I have magnet, there's not gonna be any problem. But
Yeah, so these guys are actually weak to fire, so these battles are actually quite nice if you use the fireworm bracelet.
So here Shonen's just using magnet to get them in a nice group.
yeah. The thing is that if you do not have magnet, you kinda have to wait for them to get a proper position. Because if you try to target one each time, the other one is going to start summoning, and it's not the first time I lose a really good round on that.
So one thing we never mentioned is guard canceling. After the finisher, after Shonen does a finisher, he's going to be switching to another Garb or staying in the same Garb and tapping block or guard. What that does is that cancels the last handful of frames for the finishing animation and allows you to attack a little bit faster.
Alright, so the mask incentive is you can close it already because I'm going to open the shop. So I guess retro lining is the choice.
Actually,
Actually,
just got sniped by Roosta with a $5 donation. The Sarah mask is
Sarah
going to
mask.
be the winner
Yes.
for this.
Alright.
How
Roosta
could you,
comments
Roosta?
that Lightning is a glorified Chichu, so it only seems fair that she gets the Sarah mask from the Void Beyond.
Seems like
You win
it.
that one.
feels amazing, man.
So yeah, this is basically lining with one mask. We're gonna play a little bit of some cutscenes. We would like to play a little bit more, but Imperil was really bad. So you can see how funny this is on cutscenes.
Shoutouts to a Japanese runner called Hawksnow,
Oh, yeah.
who I guess was the one who started the trend.
Yes.
Yeah, big shoutouts.
So the one good thing about the game is it uses the game engine to render a lot of the cutscenes except the final few. So what any Garb, adornments, weapons you have will also carry over into the cutscenes. So now it turns into like a superhero movie where you don't see Lightning's mouth move, but she's talking. It's kind of like she's playing with an action figure.
Yeah, I think the funniest cutscene is the Caius Temple one.
Yes.
It's really good.
Putting wishes in the mouths.
So we've done 2 of the 5 main quests, and now we're going to Polte to finish the 3rd quest.
Welcome back.
We'll be doing a small shop in Polte. Polte sells and Frost and Arrow, where Canopus Farm sells and Thunder and Fire. We'll be grabbing the rest of the elemental potions we need for the rest of the game. It will be 2 N Arrow and 1 N Frost.
Yeah, correct.
So the 1 N Arrow will be used on a main boss, and then we'll be keeping the other N Arrow and an N Frost for the final boss, just in case things don't go our way.
Just a quick note about that, the Canopus, there's a second shop that does have the potions, but we didn't have either the inventory space or the guild to buy them then, so we have to do it now.
It's funny, I remember that once I lost one run because I forgot to heal the Chocobo, so I straight up fell down there. Yeah. Yeah, it was like, why is Hope not talking about the Chocobo? Yeah.
I've done that a couple of times. Just got on him, run, and then fall, and been like, well,
Yeah,
I didn't
it's
like
really
this
good.
one anyways.
It's
It's not
really
so
good.
easy to do with the PC route.
No.
Speaking of falling, so we're going to go into the Temple of the Goddess. So if you remember from the second game, there's this goddess Etro. So we're going to go into her temple, and it's basically going to be a platformer where we're going to have to make our way back up to the top of the temple, and you can definitely lose a run if you end up falling, which I have done before.
Platformer where you have to dodge the most aggressive dessert puddings you'll ever see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Feels pudding, man.
Yeah, I guess while we're just running there, one thing that's important to mention is that enemies in this game will actually spawn in the direction that Lightning is facing. So one thing that I've been doing is when you go in the temple, it's sort of a kind of a long, narrow hallway, if you will. So you can actually, there's specific spawn zones where you know that you can get encounters, and it's pretty reliable in the temple. So what you can do is you can turn around, jump, and then the enemies will actually spawn backwards. So then you can continue on without having to, or without risking to get into an actual battle with them.
Yeah, especially
if you do it-
that the time save is really big on console because of loading screens.
Yeah, so if you do it properly, I've timed it to about a 10-second time loss, which is roughly the equivalent of getting into one encounter. And typically, if you do it without doing the manipulation, it's really common to get like 4 encounters. So on average, it's a lot more consistent.
Or you could just be D-Wens and just go for it and get no encounters.
Yeah.
Or you could YOLO it. It's basically pick your poison.
Fans of the Final Fantasy XIII trilogy will be very familiar with long, narrow hallways, by the way.
That's why I use that terminology. This game does actually a very good job at not having too many of those.
Alright, so here we're not gonna get any encounter. On the next corridors we will do that manipulation that King talked about.
This is Temple has another little wrinkle, which is that Lightning's health is constantly going down, which is visually shown by like sort of mist coming off of her body, but it falls off so low and we just run straight through the temple that it is completely no factor.
Does it? Hit points doesn't fall if you play on easy, does it?
I
don't believe it does.
I'm fine. No need to panic.
Yeah, I've never really paid attention just because it,
It goes down. It's something. It's just random thought.
Yeah. Yeah, so here you, if you're paying attention, Shonen is probably looking at the mini-map so you can see the enemies. There's going to be like 2 red dots, so that's how you know that the enemies have spawned. So like that was a very good minute there.
Yeah.
It's not always 2 red dots, but it's usually the 2 red dots, which are the
Actos.
Yeah, the Acto puddings, which are very, very aggressive. They're almost impossible to dodge.
They also have a very long reach.
Yeah, they kinda wanna hug you pretty hard.
And this temple is also a backup chest for Eroga, which would be the backup for Magnet, but we have Magnet, so don't have to worry about it, so just continue through the platforming.
Nice again. So yeah, shoutouts to Bulbasaur here.
Yeah, so this room is where there's, I guess, the second skip that you can do. So you can actually skip talking to one of the Yules by jumping across that little gap there. But on console, it's extremely tight, so it's totally not worth it. So if you do it properly, it's a 7-second time save. But you also risk Yule getting scared by the Bulbasaur there, or the Aster Protoflorian, I should say. So if that happens, then you don't actually save any time, so it's not really worth it. Definitely not on console.
Yeah, the difference is basically because of the FPS, so you can imagine.
Yeah, there's a lot more, I want to call them dead frames on console compared to PC, especially running at 60 frames a second. It makes the section on where you have to jump a lot tighter.
I mean, so far it's been a pretty clean temple.
Of course, I'm playing. Weird flex, but okay.
I think
it gets sniped by a dryad.
Yeah, I almost got sniped there
you
because
just
of
falling off something.
Okay, so there we escaped the Aroga that Rusta talked about. Because we have Magnet. That's really nice.
We can talk about what Eroga actually does when we're actually fighting Cactier, but for now I think we can focus on Caius.
Spoilers. We're gonna get to fight.
This run, quick, cover your nose. You can smell the spoilers coming.
I love
Every
that
time you
joke
run
so
into
much.
Yule, Caius is eventually going to follow, so it's not exactly a surprise.
I still think Caius is probably one of the better additions to the series.
Yeah, really good. Really great villain.
I love his voice actor in English.
Oh yeah. I really like Snow's voice actor too. And Lightning's. Lightning's is really good. Both on Japanese and English.
Caius, of course, being a pun with the word chaos, where,
Yeah.
you know, he's intimately familiar.
Hope, listen carefully.
Yeah, I always felt like Caius and Lightning would make a good duo. Like if they were ever to make FF13-4, like I feel like having both of them fight together would be kind of cool.
Oh, yeah, it will.
Those poor girls were destined to die before they could grow old.
So here we're just on the final stretch.
Made it powerful, gave it purpose.
Climb the long stairway, and
And if it's released,
The strategy
the
for the boss
boss.
is very straightforward.
yeah, this is a boss a lot of people had problems with casually. Myself included when I played this game for the first time.
destiny, no more fate.
Yeah, me too.
But-
I did one bug that I don't remember how, in order to glitch Caius and beat him. Otherwise I couldn't beat him.
So here we're just gonna debuff, overclock, and blitz till dead. These battles are very scripted, thankfully. So you can use 2 overclocks. All main bosses give you 5 EP on a defeat. So even if we use the 3, we got 6 EP for 2 overclocks.
Okay, let's see this cutscene. A little bit. Don't want to overestimate it.
It's even more ridiculous from behind.
Oh, that is just delightful. And remember, folks, it's your incentives, it's your donations that made that happen. And your donations can also change the outfit that he's wearing right now. Remember, we have that rolling incentive for the rest of the run to choose between Midnight Mauve, Passion Rouge, and the Velvet Bouncer. So get those donations in to switch that around if you want to see something a little bit different. But something that might match that mask a little better.
So the mask, Lightning's face, it's a mask you can buy in the Moogle Village. This game is, like we said before, like Dress Me Up Lightning. You can change the Garb's colors, you can buy adornments. The mask is just one of the donation incentives that the community is very split on if it's a good or bad thing.
I like the zoom in on the mask there.
Yeah, it's really good. Okay, I think that's a little bit enough.
Yeah,
I would
think
like to
that's
play
good.
it a little bit more, but yeah, Imperil was terrible, so... But yeah, that's the idea. It's really good.
So here we get Caius's weapon. So when you defeat a boss, a little red circle will spawn. We grabbed a Knowles, which ended up being the Shadow Hunter, which Midnight Mauve has. Snows we don't worry about, it's the Ghostly Hood. It reduces all physical damage by 75%, but also reduces your strength and magic to 5. The Chaos Revenge is a very good weapon in the term of utility and
so
stats.
Good. It's so good.
So it has an ability called Quick Stagger 75%. So if an enemy's at 75% stagger and you hit them with an attack from the Garb that has it equipped, you instantly stagger. So to give it terms, if a boss needs 2,000 stagger, you can stagger them at 1,500, which just saves you a lot of time. It was one thing casually I never really quite understood.
Oh,
From a speedrunning perspective, it's amazing.
Yes, it's so amazing in the dash category. We get 2 of them.
Yeah, so in practice, what that means is that whenever an enemy stagger gauge is in the red, you can basically do any attack, and that's gonna stagger.
Shonen, go fight Air Knight.
no, thank you.
Everyone, thank you
He's
for
there
doing
waiting
so
for
much
ya.
to force the Air Knight.
No, thank you, I'm good.
It's sad that Air Knight is that little black hole that's just kind of floating in the desert. He basically looks like Feral from 13-2. I don't think there's an equivalent in 13.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think it's funny because I think that the Iron Knight sprite would have a lot of problems on FPSs, so they decided to make like a reference that works pretty well. Respecting 13.2.
I think
Yeah.
on hard mode, if you fight Air Knight in Chaos, it has the highest amount of hit points out of any Final Fantasy boss.
Check out first. A door.
I think it's got something like 51 million.
Yeah, it's definitely up there, and Aeronite is one of those bosses where you actually have to stagger him multiple times to be able to actually deal reasonable damage. So the Aeronite has actually 4 levels of stagger, so you have to stagger him 4 times to be able to really deal some proper damage, which is a mechanic that the other games in this series do not have, just having like multiple staggers.
So here we get introduced to a mechanic in the maze called with timed doors. So some doors will open on odd hours, some doors will open on even hours. You can't really get yourself like stuck, but if depending on how many escapes you've had in the temple and leading up to here, you can lose a couple of seconds just to having the wrong doors closed.
Also, one thing that we didn't mention, sometimes when I get one encounter and I know that it's going to follow me quite a bit, I actually prefer walking and not consuming ATB, so I don't get a near next encounter, and I got ATB to run when it despawns.
But yeah, the step count for a new encounter appearing starts when the last encounter disappears, so if you can have him follow you for a long time.
Yeah, and I agree, Moon Crisis. I think Lightning Returns has a really good battle system. I think all the tiny elements, you know, like perfect timing, multiple level of stagger, it's just really fun to play with. And there's also a lot of different combinations that work well. So you can go for magic-based setups, or you can go for strength-based, like attacks. You know, if you want, you can build even sentinel types of garbs. It's very flexible.
I think you can also see the influence of this game, the battle system they did here, in the FF7 remake. There's definitely like some similarities there.
Yes. The FF7 remake always seemed like that blend of 15 and LR.
Yeah, the only problem with Lightning Returns is that talking and playing at the same time is not my strong part, definitely.
Of the 3 games in the trilogy, this one definitely has the most uptime where you have to be focusing.
Yeah.
It's the shortest, but also is sort of the highest intensity.
Don't worry, Shonen, you're doing great.
Don't curse it, King.
I think you could have used some more practice with getting Imperil, but otherwise you can go.
Come on,
Yeah,
Shonen.
that would be nice.
For this. So here we're just grabbing random, not random cruxes, but a certain amount of cruxes. Each crux will allow us to open a shrine for a tablet. So we've already went through 2 shrines to begin with. You want to get at least 2 tablets before coming here. So we unlocked the Sacred Gate there, which is the door to the boss, and the game's like, hold on, you need to do a little more puzzling.
Yeah.
So here we're just going to get 2 crux pieces, and it works out nice because after we get the second crux piece, the third part's way back at the Sacred Gate, so we can just teleport out.
Yeah, I got one encounter there that it was pretty tricky to dodge, and I couldn't get it. That goblet was in a pretty decent position to get me.
As far as puzzle pieces go, the current route Shonen is doing has this early in the day, and so it doesn't really matter what time it is. He can, he'll have to work with the doors, so if he gets at a weird time, he might need another encounter, but it's not like the day will end, which in the current PC route, you can't get these encounters because the day can't end, so...
Yeah, especially this skeleton there that he was able to dodge is notorious for being pretty difficult dodge.
Actually, that encounter might benefit me for the old door. Because it's
1234.
Yeah, I think I'll make it 1, and that'll be odd for the door, which is what you want.
Yeah, so again, this Gurengach is pretty much the same thing as the other one for the most part.
Yeah, at
It goes
Pika.
down pretty quick.
Alright, so here we're gonna get the Collector's Catalog, really important item for the late game. Basically, that's gonna make our buffs last longer?
Yeah, they'll last 25% longer. So our bravery potions, bravery potion lasts for 30 seconds. With the collector's catalog, it's now going to last 36. It works out more for potions we're going to be getting closer to the end of the game.
Yeah, and for some reason, whenever you use an elemental potion, those last, I believe, is it 4 minutes?
5. Veil potions and vigilance potions also last 5.
I don't know why they made them last that long, but yeah. Just a little bit early.
And the bravery potion that was mentioned being 30 seconds. I made a joke earlier that there's only one boss that's longer than a minute, but there's only one boss that's longer than 30 seconds even, so we only really need that potion. Well, there's a few bosses that can definitely get above 30 seconds if you mess up, including the boss that's coming up for this area. But that collector's catalog is really for one boss that's much longer than everything else.
The one boss where you actually have to use game mechanics and not overclock.
Pepe hands.
Pepe hands.
Thinking.
So here we're just coming up to the second crux piece. After this, Shonen will be teleporting to Ruffian and then sleeping till 5. He's going to get the 3rd tablet and then end the day.
This area, there's 3 separate tablets that you just pick up, and then you have to put them into 3 separate pedestals. And once you've completed all of that, that'll unlock the boss that we're going to fight at the end. So just working through all of this stuff. And we've already done a few of these earlier, just because when you're already in the Dead Dunes earlier to get Passion Rouge and trigger these quests, you can do that then. Then we come back to finish it off once we're strong enough to fight the final boss, which is either Grendel or Apprentice.
Yeah, so right now, as Dine said, I'm going to sleep to 5, buy 1 weapon and 1 shield, and go for the last tablet. So if you wanna read donations or something, that it's been a while, go for it.
Well, I just want to give a shout out to our community here. You know, if you like what you're seeing here at ESA and you want to get more involved with the community, come on over to the ESA Discord. We're at discord.gg/ESA Marathon, where we've got an incredibly friendly, welcoming community that we have a ton of fun before, during, and after each and every one of our events. You can also get up-to-date information from our Twitter at twitter.com/ESA Marathon. And if you're tuning in and find that you missed out on a previous run, you can always check out the VODs available for all of our runs, both on Twitch and on our YouTube channel.
So here Shonen just handed in the Soul Seed to the Seed Hunter, the girl with the black mage hat, and that also allows us to hand in the Moogle fragment we got for another dodge fragment. Shonen's going to be buying the Wyvern Lance and the Pendragon Shield. The Wyvern Lance increases your stagger power by 15%. It's not really needed for the boss, but it is a nice safety net.
Hey, I wanted to check if I bought the Wyvern Lens because I made the inputs way too fast and I didn't even see it.
And then the Pendragon Shield offers 3,000 hit points to the Garb that has it equipped, which once again is not really needed for the boss, but it does make it quite a bit safer, especially because he does have a lot of powerful attacks, and it's not like every other fight we've seen so far where we can just burst them down with overclocks.
Yeah, the final boss of the speedrun is quite a doozy. One of the more challenging ones in the whole series. And a lot of what we do is to prepare literally for just the final boss.
Yeah.
Game has 1 frame links and guards. It's definitely more than 1 frame. Perfect guards are 1/10 of a second. No, 1/6. So you have 5 frames for a perfect guard.
Yeah, the game also has an accessory called the Forsaken Tie, which makes that window a little bit larger.
It's 3 times as large, right?
It adds 1/6 of a second.
Okay, so double, but then it's
3
times for a normal perfect timing.
Yeah. So, because like finishers have a larger window than normal attacks do.
Oh, we find another type. Alright, so we're gonna kill the day here.
So what Reflections is mentioning in chat for status ailment buffering is this is something the PC route uses, but a different form of it. So if you can stack one Garb with enough status ailment damage, and then have a spell and the debuff on the same button but on different Garbs, if you can switch back and forth fast enough, the game thinks a spell is a debuff. So in a fully decked out form, you can have 520% status ailment damage. So if you can cast Thundera and switch to your debuffing Garb, Thundera gets a 520% damage bonus. So if it is very, very tight window, it's 2 frames, but you can get a large amount of damage out of it. Ability buffering is a little more lenient.
By the way, Shonen, I just wanted to mention after the first tablet, the skeletons that appear behind the tablet are never real.
Yeah, it never works.
Enemies.
Yeah, it's faster if you jump through them, right?
Yeah.
Since I saw you destroy them both. I just wanted to make sure you knew.
All right.
You also run a little bit slower with your weapon out. So
I didn't know that. Okay.
And yeah, just like Roosta ended up typing in chat, this game is basically 1 minute of in-game time is 2.5 seconds in real time.
2 frames out of 30. Well, on console it's 30 frames. On PC it's 60. It's really not that unusual. So considering it's not an intended game mechanic, the game doesn't want to make it easy for you to just buffer abilities that do godlike damage for free. So basically what you're doing is the game's initializing the attack, and then you switch to make when the game does a check. So it's not an intended game mechanic. You're just tricking the game thinking an ability is not the actual ability.
And by the way, that 2.5 seconds to 1 minute of in-game time is set up so that 1 day of in-game time is 1 hour of real time.
Oh. Okay, that was funny.
Yeah. So this is where Magnet's really gonna shine. You can just hold down the button.
So you can see every single hit is just 1 damage.
So the reason we want Magnet is Cactuar, you have to deal over 65,535 damage in 1 attack to deal more than 1 damage. Magnet's ideal because it doesn't have a finisher. It's 15 ATB and it hits 4 times. Aroga, the backup, hits 10 times for 40 ATB, but you have to deal with a backflip.
Yeah, for Magnet, there's no finisher. For Aroga, every hit is a finisher, so it's significantly slower.
And then Fang will also help out for chip damage.
Finishers have a lot of strength in that, as Dine mentioned a while ago, they give you a lot more stagger power, they do more damage. The finisher for Heavy Slash is also just a finisher, and we'll be doing that a lot, and it's really great. But for this specific fight, where the damage doesn't matter, it's just how many times you hit, the finishers are bad.
Yeah, it saves about 30 seconds if you take into account the fact that you actually have to pick up the Aerogut chest.
Stays about 30 seconds, but it can be a little bit less if you get a lucky Aurora drop.
Yeah, that's true.
So here we're just gonna kill the day and go to the next one. Yeah, this day is one of the shortest ones.
So we're almost near the end. There's just Perandis,
and
Saz, and then Resident Sleeper mode.
Yeah, big Resident Sleeper.
So we're going to be fighting the final boss in the Dead Dune Maze now that we have the 3rd tablet piece. Whether you do Cactuar before Perandis or after is it's a dealer's choice kind of thing. Doing it before Brandis is nice because you have Fang for a little bit of extra chip damage. But there's really, it's a very, very minimal difference from doing it before and after.
Yeah, I think especially if you get the magnet drop, then it doesn't matter so much.
Yeah, with the Eroga only, it's actually a pretty significant improvement having Fang, but with Magnet, it's only like 1 or 2 seconds. But yeah, they mentioned Resident Sleeper mode because, like we mentioned before, we're trying to arrange EP and sleeping to get everything done by the end of the time limit of day 13. However, it turns out the most efficient way, we basically finish around day 11, and so the last 2 days we can pretty much just sleep and spend our EP on items.
So the only real long days in this route is day 6 and day 7. Everything else is just pretty short. Day 1 and 2, we pretty much just destroy a lot of the day with sleeping.
And there's nothing really special about those days in particular. It's just day 6 because we use the first few days to visit the different places we need to get the items we need to do the day 6 things. And then the day 7 things come naturally after day 6, and then it's just arranging it in the way that's as fast as possible. It happens to be those are the best days.
And Rusa did also a lot of testing with the load screens, which I believe made him infuriated because they changed during, like, depend on, like, what was it, like plot position, where you are?
Yeah, where you're teleporting from and to, what time of day it is, who is in your party. All these things can have non-seemingly deterministic effects on how long the load is. Which is part of the reason I was motivated to make a load remover, just because then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, because... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, there's definitely like some areas that you can teleport to, which are always pretty quick. So if you're trying to teleport to Yogd Village, for example, I think the game just doesn't have to render a lot of stuff when you teleport in that area. So those ones are always pretty fast. But if you go back to Yusnon, actually, even if you teleport from Yusnon back to Yusnon Station, it takes quite a while.
Another weird one that's particularly bad is Ruffian. Like, what you've done in the story affects the number of NPCs, the time, whether or not Fang is in the party. It's very frustrating.
So here we just throw 2 potions in the start, just because you can't generate stagger while Brandis is using Absolute Barrier. So we have a couple of free seconds. So we just throw the Bravery and Arrow. We throw the Arrow because Brandis is weak against Wind. Soldier apiece is not worth it in any speed run. Soldier apiece requires us to kill 3 monkeys and then an Aster Protoflorian, and then go back to Yogd Village to hand in... No, it requires us to kill 6 mini flans, 3 monkeys, either Valleys or Hanumins, and then an Aster Protoflorian. Hand in the quest at the beginning of Yogd Village, and then finish the quest in Yogd Village. And so Army of One has a ridiculous damage modifier, but we don't have a heavy slash to make it worth it.
I think you mean Artemis Arrows.
Oh, Artemis Arrows, sorry, yes. This game doesn't have a defense mechanic. It has physical resistance. Artemis Arrows doesn't do anything for that. On top of it, Artemis Arrows has the biggest damage swing out of any attack in the game by 50%. Where every other attack has a 3 to 5% damage variance.
Yeah, on the Parandus battle, the problem is that I got knocked off because I didn't see the Ruinga. In theory, you just guard that and you just straight up overclock with Blitz.
Yeah, an ideal Parandus fight is usually around like 28, 29 seconds, but it's very easy to let him slap you or get hit by Ruinga, which causes lightning to get launched. And the fight is long enough that the Thorn of Courage Bravery or even the In Potion Bravery can wear off, and then it just can easily turn from a 29-second fight into a 40-second fight.
Yeah. So the main problem there is that even if you see the attack in time, there's a good chance that you already queued off an attack, and by that time, even if you try to guard, it's too late.
Yeah, Ruinga you can prepare for, but the slap,
The
you just
slap,
have to
yeah.
anticipate it.
Yeah, Ruinga gives you a couple of seconds of notice. So here we're done all the main quests. The only thing left to do is to kill the last couple of days. After day 10, the Hope Shop changes. He gets rid of those crummy warrior potions that we no longer need and replaces them with Heroes Potions. Heroes Potions cost 2 EP, and they give us Bravery, Faith, Vigilance, and Haste for 1 minute, or 75 seconds with the Collector's Catalog. Bravery is physical damage increased by 50%. Faith is magic damage increased by 50%. Vigilance will help with interruptions, or help prevent lightning from getting interrupted. And Haste will just increase our ATB regeneration speed by quite a bit.
Yeah, and Vigilance is actually amazing for the final boss. Actually, it's so good that the current PC strat uses a Vigilance potion just to get that right out of the gate.
Well, there's a specific reason why you have to use a Vigilance potion instead of a Heroes potion, and that's that the first phase of the final boss casts Doom, and Lightning can only have 5 status ailments on her at a time. So if you get hit with another status ailment, it'll bump off the last one on the list. And so the Hero's Potion is 4, Doom is the 5th, and then you can't have the Hero Potion with your Inspel.
Yeah, because Bravery will get knocked off.
Yeah, so you would use a Hero's Potion, except it doesn't work for Phase 1. So you do a Vigilance Potion, Thorn of Courage gives you the Bravery, and then you have your Inspel.
Yeah, there used to be a strat where people would use actually 3 potions. So you would use a combination of a Bravery Potion, Hero's Potion, and then an End Potion to be able to achieve like the 4 buffs that you need. But that's actually a little bit slower than what we do these days.
It does make Phase 1 quite a bit safer for people wanting to learn the route. Having Haste is really nice. Having Haste is probably the most important thing about the 3 potion strat. It sets you up really nicely for Phase 2 if you've had a really bad Phase 1.
Yeah, with a really long fight, you use your ATBs up, and you can't just overclock because there's so much damage that you have to be doing. The recharging from Haste is really beneficial in that long fight.
Depending on the way that you do the final boss, you may or may not have to be good at perfect timings. Which gives you an additional 20% of damage, which actually makes a big difference on the final boss.
So the last day we're going to be upgrading our 3 starting Garbs. So Equilibrium, Dark Muse, and Mist Wizard are going to get a fancy plus at the end of the name, which also means they get fancy new abilities. Dark Muse gets Velvet Bounce will end up getting replaced by Dark Muse. So Velvet Bounce or Dark Muse has a Heavy Slash that has an 8 times damage or 8 times attack modifier on it. And what King was mentioning is with the Heavy Slashes is you can do an attack into Heavy Slash, which will give you a 20% bonus on top of that 8 times damage.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. If you look back a few years to when this physical route was first discovered for Booney, you'll see people just spamming Heavy Slash, and eventually it was realized that you could just throw in a small little attack just to trigger the perfect timing on the Heavy Slash, which gives you the plus 20% damage.
I miss the old days of just sitting on the edge of the screen for 6 minutes flinging Element.
Yeah, and actually it doesn't need to be attack specifically. You can perfect time off of pretty much anything. I don't know if you can perfect time off of guards.
You can.
It's very awkward if you can do that. Yeah, not recommended.
So Equilibrium Plus gets a nice auto ability called Standby Recovery Plus, which means it gets a 30% ATB recovery bonus when it's in Standby. Standby is just not collected Garb. Its attack also gets quite a nice bonus. So those two will be replacing Midnight Mauve and Velvet Bouncer.
Yeah, that Velvet Bouncer that we bought right at the start, we've been using it all the way until now because of the damage multiplier on Blitz is so good. But finally, we have a better alternative.
So in the dash route, King was mentioning the community defined 100% route. We kind of use Velvet Bouncer up until the last day, then we'll use Dark Muse. And then for the last leg of New Game Plus Dash, we'll actually switch back to Velvet Bouncer just because of the strength buff, the strength bonus it gives.
Yeah, so one thing that you can do when you get to New Game Plus is the game gives you the ability to upgrade your weapons and your shields. We're not going to see that here, but it's kind of a nice mechanic that you get. It provides some replayability.
What is this game? RTA. PC is 158, PS3 is 219, and Xbox 360 is 219 for world records. PC loses about 20 minutes to load? No, not 20 minutes.
20 minutes, that's right.
Oh, it is? Oh, I thought that number seemed really high.
That's, including the trips to the Ark, that's teleports, small loads, all that kind of stuff counts in that.
Yeah, are the DLC Garbs any good? Yes. Just like Reflections is mentioning in the chat, Spear's Summoner is the way to go due to the super powerful Elementa that it comes with. Actually, even if you try to upgrade your own or craft your own Elementa, you will not be able to get it as powerful as the one that Spear's Summoner has.
I was about to say it's so broken you can't even craft it.
Yeah.
I think it's still a 3 times damage difference between crafting and Spira.
I think it comes with is it 9.8? I think that's the modifier.
And I think the highest is 6.85 for if you craft it. 6.85 or 6.25.
Yeah, and good luck crafting Elementas because you would have to farm the Angela, right?
Elementica, I think you only get from Booney.
No, Elementa.
Oh, yeah, Elementa's Archangelize.
I don't think I got Heavy Slashes for Dark Muse Plus. I think I only got Gale Strikes.
Yeah, you got the Death Herald drop from the double Anubis.
It was mentioned that, 20 minutes, it seems like a lot for loading, but if you think about Final Fantasies before 12, then you're going to have cutscenes. So Final Fantasy X, for example, is 6 hours of repeated cutscenes versus 20 minutes of loading. I'll take the loading any day.
I was about to say Final Fantasy VI has almost 3 hours in a 5-hour run, 2.5, 3 hours of cutscenes.
Another nice thing about this run, compared to many other JRPGs, is there's almost no mashing.
Yeah, it's I guess the way I look at the battle system, if you're trying to perfect time your attacks, is it's very rhythmic. So in many ways, whenever I'm playing the game and other players play the game, it's got sort of a rhythm to it. If you want to perfect time your attacks, I guess that's how I would describe it, anyways.
Another thing that was mentioned before, but I'll reiterate, is that perfect timing window, I believe, is 1/12 of a second for normal attacks.
Yes.
So for finishers, it's twice as it's 1/6, and the big one that you have to be able to perfect time for the rest of the run is heavy slash, and every heavy slash is a finisher, so you get the larger window.
Right. So right now I think there's only 3 battles left before the final boss.
Yes.
Please open your eyes.
And yeah, we're gonna see the power of Chaos Revenge basically on this first fight.
So we don't have a time on the last day, so we can escape battles freely and not have to worry about anything. In the first fight here, you're going to see something called the reinforcement skip. So these cathedral sentries instantly call for more friends to join because they're lonely. Where we're going to use 4 Blizzaras and then a heavy slash to stagger, but we don't want to kill the sentry. So since the first sentry got staggered, the reinforcement command gets cancelled. If you end up killing them, the second guard will just end up calling for friends.
Yeah, and as you can see here, the debuff that the guard got was confused healing, or is that confusion is what it's called,
confused.
Right? Yeah, confused. So he basically ends up healing lightning.
I love
He
that.
does several confused things. He can attack his friend, which is pretty funny because his attack hits multiple times really fast,
And
so
it's got a pretty
sometimes
high
it'll
stagger too.
Yeah, so you'll just see just like randomly one of his friends gets staggered because he shoots him.
Oh, by the way, if someone is really into glitches and everything, please look into this, because if we can manage to glitch through the floor on this section, we actually can skip everything and get to the last boss. So yeah, if you want to do some science for us, that would be pretty neat.
Honestly, I'm surprised it hasn't happened with 60 FPS yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, this game has a fairly small speedrunning community, so I think it just hasn't gotten a lot of eyes on, so...
We just saw something we haven't seen in a while, which is an action roll.
Yep.
Right.
Which I guess is probably a good segue to, I just want to say if anyone watching this is interested in learning the game, or if you're just playing the game casually and you have any questions about anything really, feel free to join the Final Fantasy XIII Discord. So it's a Discord for all 3 games, and it's definitely like an active community for Lightning Returns, so we'd be more than happy to help out anyone. So you can go to speedrun.com/LRFF13, and the link to the Discord is going to be there.
Like we mentioned, the runners here run the 100% category, which means if you have any questions, they should be able to answer anything. So.
Especially Mr. Nuitari, who knows pretty much anything about the game.
So here we're coming up to Chimera. Funny thing is, the Chimeras only spawn on the final day. So it's not like we can really see them anywhere else. And it's the one appearance is really memorable. So we're just going to do the good old throw Blazzaras to get them to a certain stagger gauge, break stagger with the heavy slash for that 3 times bonus. And then just for safety reasons, we're going to be touching the butt. So when you attack an enemy from the back, you get a 20% damage bonus. It makes the Chimera fight really safe. When he's staggered, you get a 2 times damage bonus. But if you end up breaking the Thunder or the Wind Head, you end up losing that stagger bonus because stagger ends. So if you're good with the attack into heavy slashes, like you'll see a lot on the PC runs, you can just sit there and keep attacking their head. But it is a little bit of a gamble depending on Lightning's position.
Oh, by the way, you can already close the Garb incentive since we're gonna finish pretty soon.
Sounds good.
The move that we're using a lot now, the heavy slash, you can see the camera gives you a little cinematic every time he uses it now, so the camera's going to be whipping around a lot for the final boss coming up. But that heavy slash has some pretty cool animations, and some of them are a little weird when you're attacking Chimera from behind, but we're past that part now, so...
That was unfortunate. So in the last battle where Shonen fought the 2 sets, you can get some really good drops. So there's the Executioner's Axe, which can be used to replace the Kiku Ichimonji. And also you can get some buffed heavy slashes, which come with a plus 130 strength boost. Unfortunately, we didn't get any drops, so not
or
today.
Blitz.
Another fun thing about the Executioner's Axe is... Sorry.
Yeah, Blitz is from the Chimera, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Or can you get them from the sets too?
Oh, Chimera's Thundera, Thundera Naroga.
You can get Blitz from Chimera as well. I'm pretty sure on that one.
But it's magic buffed, if it's buffed.
Alright, so this is only the last battle left. I will focus quite a lot on that battle. I'm not gonna even talk, so
yeah, that's what
these guys are going to explain everything really well.
Just one thing I wanted to mention really quick is the Executioner's Axe also comes with a really big HP bonus. So he got the Pendragon Shield for safety, but the Executioner's Axe serves the same purpose as that.
Yeah, I think it's 1,000 hit points.
Yeah, it's something big. But it doesn't come with the ATB charging deficit that the Pendragon does.
Yeah.
Alright. So now we're going to go ahead and fight the God of Light, Mr. Bunavelza himself. I
thought it was Hope.
After after all, we find out that he's not actually a good guy, so we're going to take him out instead. So this is actually a 4-phase battle, and each phase has its own gimmick. So just like Rusta mentioned a little bit earlier in the speedrun, this first phase, he's going to cast Doom on Lightning, so that's kind of the first gimmick there.
So this boss has 4 phases. The combined amount of hit points is sitting around 3.6 million. So when you're doing 30,000, you can't really just use overclocks to burst it down. So what we're going to do is use spells to get Bunavelza close to stagger, and then break stagger with the Chaos Revenge and a Heavy Slash, which, as you've seen, increased the damage to about 100,000.
Each stagger has its own thing that comes with it. So for the first phase, he gets unprotected, so he takes more damage from physical attacks. Second phase is unshelled, which does basically nothing for us since we don't cast very much magic. And then we'll see later on what the rest of the phases get.
So here you can see Shonen just debuff, get ready, and then he's going to end up attacking Booney and then dropping a decoy. What this does is it drops the little Moogle behind Booney, which will give us that nice positional damage and also keep his spells from attacking us. Doing this is a little bit risky because those orbs that Booney has will also bring him closer to lightning, which means if they end up exploding, lightning can take a large amount of damage. Nice, you only got hit with one of them.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure, I don't know if I'm making this consistent, so I didn't ever tell it. The thing is that I think if you keep attacking Booney, you end up being so close that the orbs doesn't actually hit all of them. But I'm not really sure about that. It's working pretty consistent for me lately.
Oh, yeah. It kind of depends on where the Moogle goes, though, because it can move around.
I cannot really tell them.
The third phase is still turning around because of the decoy, and his stagger condition is going to be daze, which is really useful.
So an attack that breaks daze, it gets a double damage boost. So it's pretty much as effective as a staggering hit.
Yeah, and the gimmick in this phase is that Bunavelza is going to be casting some buffs on himself. And for each buff, I believe he's going to be doing one more attack per turn. So he's going to keep attacking more and more, and he's going to keep buffing himself. So you really want to take him out as quickly as possible.
Nice.
Yes, it's looking really good though. I'm gonna take the explosion here, just for safety.
There's a little mechanic in the game where while using items, you take less damage. So
90% less damage.
Yeah, 90% is a really huge amount, so using it there lets you get HP back and take less.
Yeah, and if you use a potion, the game also gives you plus 90 keep points, so it's almost impossible to get interrupted.
So phase 4 is where everyone usually cries. Bunavelza has such a high stagger rate here. And with his attacks and his really high stagger decay, if you're not set up right, you can have a really hard time staggering him. But with the double overclocks here, it makes it pretty much free. And when Bunavelza's staggered, he takes 5 times damage from physical and magical. So with Imperil and Deprotect, he's taking about 8 times normal damage. And he's now inflicted for 62.3 seconds. So once you stagger him, it's pretty much GG.
Nice. That was really, really quick. That was insane.
GG.
GG, well played.
GG, nice, sir.
Thank you. Only 2 seconds is lower than my best Booney.
So 2 minutes to spare. We could
and
have
time,
watched more of
by the way.
cutscene.
I forgot. Time was coming up. Yeah.
Time.
Yeah, hopefully I didn't overestimate it.
Nope, you're a minute and a half under.
Woo! Nice.
I had no idea where the estimate was because I have your stream open, so I get the faster feed.
Yeah,
I think it's 2.5 hours.
Yeah. So on these cutscenes, it's also really funny to watch Lightning with the mask because I don't know, she's killing a god with some fancy looking.
Nobody cared who she was until she put on the mask.
Yeah, it's killing Booney in Mardi Gras mode.
Does anyone have a Sarah mask emoji? I feel like that's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I feel like something needs to be added to Finger Facey for that.
So I don't know. We can watch this cutscene, and after that, I don't have much more to say. I already big shoutouts to the community, especially these three guys. They're really good. They put a lot of work on the game. I started running this game on October 2019, and thanks to them, I learned the route really quickly and got pretty good at the game really fast. So yeah, big shoutouts to you guys. Thanks a lot. And if someone really wants to learn this game or 13 or 13.2, you can join the Discord that King SPI said.
Yeah, and we love talking about this. All three of these games, they're each unique and have a lot of really cool things going on and very interesting speedruns.
Yeah, so I don't know. This is over. If you wanna cut it out, that's it. Thanks a lot for having me on ESA, and that's all.
Thank you everyone for the donations and the support and sticking around.
Thanks for running ESA despite all the things going on in the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everyone stay safe.
Yeah,
And gentlemen, thank you all for coming along for this ride. We enjoyed this amazing Final Fantasy XIII run. Coming up next, we will have SRD running Hearthstone, Galakrond's Awakening, and he's going to be doing that with the League of Evil. We are going to be showcasing the final boss there. So thanks to your generous donations, everyone, we're going to make that happen. But first, we're going to have a brief intermission, and you can enjoy some music, and then we'll...